No. We have more of a crowd today. A little bit. Okay, let's see. So go ahead and start then. Gora Draganya Gana Gotra Goloruharam Goranga Gura Tamago Pyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Bikichuna Bachila Jachiya Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Goranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namure Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema-bhakti-candrika Parama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kuryat Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishi Yustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathavta Brajabala Vapahima Vancha Kalpatadubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, so nice to see everybody here today. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go a little slow, otherwise I'm going to be in big trouble today, right? Yeah. Because Krishna Kun she'll be translating everything to Hungarian, and she doesn't want me to do it line by line. She doesn't want to do it simultaneously. So,
if you want to do it one by one, it's much easier for me.
That's what I'm saying.
So you're going to do it like that?
We'll just see how it goes.
Okay.
So, we can all recite this prayer. I have to send this to the devotees here in Debrecen, and maybe Krishna Kun can make a Hungarian translation. This is from the Srila Narottam Prabhu Ashtakam. 8 prayers to Vishwanath Chakravarti, to Narottam Das Thakur by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So we can begin with this. Shri Krishna Namamrita Bharshi Vaktra Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamovaraya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Tasmai Namo Nama Shri Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He is a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev, the nectarian shower of the holy name of Krishna radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. Destroys the darkness of ignorance. So, we started section 2 of Prema-bhakti-candrika in our last time. And it was very, very technical. And we heard something from the 11th verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, where Rupa Goswami describes it, Anyabhilasita shunyam gyana kamadi anabhita manukul yena Krishna nusilanam bhakti uttama. He describes what is uttam bhakti, the definition of pure bhakti. And this is Bhakti Vinod describes, we mentioned in our last session. Bhakti means pure bhakti. Just like if you ask someone for a glass of water, you don't expect that they're going to go and fill it up from the toilet and bring it to you. Water means pure water. No, I actually want pure water. I don't want toilet water. But we're in such a diseased condition that we have to hear something about the difference between the two. We're so diseased that we think toilet water, that's also water. What's the problem? We think that some mechanical form of religion is also bhakti. So, Narottam Das Thakur, in the beginning of this book, now he's gone through, he's given his Mangalacharna prayers, he's worshipped the Vaishnavas and Gurudev, he's worshipped Rupa and Sanatan and glorified the Bhagavatam. And now he's establishing the subject matter of Prema-bhakti-candrika. And mostly I want to focus on one small phrase of this first Bengali verse today. See. I'll bring this up on the screen. This is more or less Narottam Das Thakur's Paya, or Bengali translation of Anyabhilasita Shunya. Anya abhilasi chadi gyana karma parihari kaya mani koribo bhajan sadhu sange Krishna seva na pujiba devi deva e bhakta parama karan. The topmost process of devotional service is to worship the Lord with body and mind, giving up desires for fruitive activities and mental speculation. One should serve Lord Krishna in the association of devotees without worshipping any demigods. So, this is Narottam's basic statement of what pure bhakti means. And this is so important for us to understand. Pure bhakti doesn't just mean that you have tilak on and a dhoti or sari. It doesn't just mean that you chant 16 rounds a day. It doesn't mean you follow 4 regulated principles and chant 16 rounds. All of those things will qualify you as a religious member of a church. But it doesn't necessarily mean prema bhakti or pseudo bhakti. So anya abhilasa chadi, we should reject, we should give up all other different desires. Jnana karma parihari, we should abandon jnana and karma. Why does he use a different word for jnana and karma than he does for anyabhilas? Can anybody raise their hand and remember from our last session? Then we were speaking from a Sanskrit verse in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Words are a little different, but the purport is the same. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami says, Anya bilasita shunya. Shunya, no anya bilas, no nonsense. No nonsense in Govinda's restaurant. Very okay. But jnana karma anabhitam. Jnana karmadi. Anabhitam means that it shouldn't be covered. So why not just say jnana karma shunyatam? Let's see. Leela Purushottam Prabhu, can you unmute yourself and share something with us?
Hare Krishna. Because certain karmas and jnanas doesn't necessarily have to be unfavorable for cultivating bhakti. So that's why they have their place in cultivation of bhakti. But what does it mean? This word anavrita means they shouldn't cover the bhakti. They shouldn't be considered necessary or prominent for cultivation of bhakti.
Very good. So let me ask another question, which you probably know the answer for. Let's see what's on. There's two ways that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that jnana or karma may cover bhakti. Does anybody remember one of those ways? Maybe somebody who was taking notes. Or you weren't here last session, were you? Anybody? Krishna Kund, loudly.
It shouldn't cover bhakti by us considering it the goal.
Okay, one way is that it may cover bhakti is that we may think that it's the goal.
And it shouldn't cover bhakti by us thinking that it's necessary for me to achieve the goal.
Nor should it cover bhakti by that we may think that I have to do this, otherwise I can't get the goal. I have to have a bhakti shāstra degree, otherwise I can't get Sudha Bhakti. I have to read all the books. What if you're blind? The Hare Krishna movement is only for people who can read books. It's not for people who can't read. It's not for people who are blind. We're sorry, you have to go to some other process. It's for everybody. Huh? Or karma. I have to do vanashram dharma. Some people think I'm practicing bhakti so that I'll become good at vanashram dharma. Or they may be thinking that I can't practice bhakti unless I do vanashram dharma. So vanashram means karma, according to our acharyas. So that's covering bhakti. Bhakti will act on its own. In one lecture in 1968 in Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada said a few things about vanashram. And afterwards, one senior devotee, who passed away a few years ago, Madhudvisa Prabhu. Is this supposed to be doing something? No. Can you pass it to her?
I can try to again.
Maybe just right now, I think. So after the class, Madhudvisa Prabhu, he asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, we're supposed to do vanashram dharma? And Prabhupada asked him an interesting question. He said, before you came here, before you started practicing bhakti, were you practicing vanashram dharma? Madhudvisa said, no, Srila Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada said, was it due to your practice of vanashram that you got the piety to be here and practicing bhakti? Madhudvisa said, no, Srila Prabhupada. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. Bhakti comes from bhakti. Prabhupada said, I've created your good fortune. Bhakti-stu bhagavad bhakta sangena parijayate. The bhakti comes from the pure devotee. Some karma, some gyan may be beneficial for us. And we spoke about 3 types of gyan in our last session. I won't go there today. One of which is bad, 2 of which are okay. I want to go on a little bit today and speak some more about what Narottam Das Thakur is saying in this verse here. It's interesting, he brings out a little more subtle points. He doesn't say jnana karma chadi, you should give up jnana and karma, but parihari, you should abandon them. Not that you're riding on that horse forever and ever, but at a certain point you get off that horse. And rather, kaya mani kori bo bhajan. You should do bhajan with your body, mind, and words. And how do we do that? What does that mean? It means anukul yena Krishna. It means favorable bhakti. So what is that favorable bhakti? Here he says sadhu sange Krishna seva. It means serving Krishna in association with the devotees at Govinda's restaurant. Or at the temple or wherever we're serving with the devotees. And then he says, na puji but deva, that you should not worship any devatas, any demigods. Well, to be really fair, he says Devi Deva. He says Devi first. Shouldn't worship any goddesses or any demigods. And this, a bhakta paramakana, this is the topmost process of bhakti. Now, again, a little more philosophy from our last session, but it's important. Sometimes we have this discussion about who's a pure devotee. And Prabhu, we just want to associate with pure devotees. And what is a pure devotee? A pure devotee is like someone who glows in the dark. And they can see Krishna and talk to Krishna, and they know Sanskrit, and they've memorized the whole Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, and something like that. I mean, something very, very, very high and difficult to get to. But without me showing examples, and I could dig up some examples if somebody doesn't believe me, Srila Prabhupada, many times, he said things like, all of my disciples are pure devotees. Okay, that's we should respect all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, but is that really true? I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, but I know one sannyasi who left sannyas and he got married to a boy, and he ended up being a male striptease dancer in a gay bar, and he finally got AIDS, and he left his body. He's a pure devotee? Or so many devotees have left. Srila Prabhupada said, all of my disciples are pure devotees. So why did Prabhupada say that? Maybe he's just trying to flatter everybody. Maybe you think. Sometimes Nitai Bhavani Prabhu tells everybody, you're all pure devotees who are working here. You're all very great, special. Because he wants to flatter you so that you keep working with Govinda. Maybe he says like that. Why did Prabhupada say that? We have to understand there's 2 definitions of pure devotee. In the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives one definition of a pure devotee. What is his definition of a pure devotee? Apichet suduracharo Bhajate mam ananya bhak sadareva samantavya samyaghi vyasito hi saha. He says, this is a sadhu. He's a durachari sadhu. Means he's not behaving very well. But he's a sadhu, he's a pure devotee. How is he a pure devotee? Because he's doing ananyata bhajan. What is the meaning of ananyata bhajan? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Sa'artha Varshini commentary explains. He says it means that someone is not taking shelter of karma or gyan or worship of the devatas. They're not pure necessarily in their behavior. They still have material desires. They still have problems. But they understand that worship of Krishna is all that I want to do. And that's all that I want to take shelter of. But apichet sudaracharo, their behavior is not always so good. But still, by saying the word samantavya, Krishna is being very emphatic. You must give them respect. I was reading something a few days ago from Srila Prabhupada about this verse. And someone asked him, Prabhupada, what does this mean? What about devotees who fall down and go away? What does it mean, accidental fall down? Prabhupada gave a very simple definition, which I'm not going to suggest would be practical for management, but it's what Prabhupada said. He says accidental means if they come back again. So very, very important is it that we focus on the activities of bhakti. Anyabilasita shunya. We don't want to be doing any nonsense activities. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that Kaya Mani Kori Vibhajan Sadhu Sangha Krishna Seva Na Puji Badevi Deva E Bhakta Paramakarana. That if someone is not taking shelter of karma again, they're trying to associate with devotees. They're not worshiping the devis or devas. That person is doing pure bhakti. That person is a pure devotee. By Srila Prabhupada's definition. They don't glow in the dark. They still have some material desires. But we give them all respect because they're fixed in their niche that this is going to solve all the problems. I can tell you, and I don't mean to be harsh, but in kind of a blunt way, I don't mean to be harsh, but to speak in, you can tell such a person when they open their mouth. When they tell you things like, Prabhu, that's okay. Bhakti's okay. But the managers are rascals and we have to kick them out. Or there's this virus going on. Or there's this conspiracy going on. Or there's this war going on. And this is more important in this bhakti right now. And later on, we'll come back to this. But in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defines bhakti, defines Shraddha, faith. Shraddha Sabdi Vishwas Kai Shuddha Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Koili Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. That firm conviction, all that I have to do is practice Krishna Bhakti. But Prabhu, that's nice, but they're killing so many cows. There's so many people being trafficked. There's so many women being kidnapped and children being molested. I saw in the news today, they found one old man, he had 200 pages of pictures of child pornography in his room. He had like over 100,000 different pictures. It means there's a lot of child pornography going on. So how can we talk about bhakti when these things are going on? This is not even human behavior. We should be a human first, and then we can become a devotee later. But the problem is, you'll never become really a human, and you definitely won't become a bhakta either. And therefore, Narottam Das Thakur in another song later on, Prema-bhakti-candrika, he says that karmi jnana micha bhakta nahobe tate anurakta. Don't be attached to the karmis, the jnanis, and the false devotees. Huh? Vishuddha bhajana koroman. Rather, you should do pure bhajan. In other words, if you're attached to all these things, and they may be very noble things, to save the cow is a very, very noble thing. To save small children, to protect women is a very important thing. But if you're thinking that we have to do these things and these are more important than bhakti, then you're not practicing Sudha Bhakti. And I've seen so many people get distracted. So many people get in big arguments. If the material world is an illusion, then I would describe Facebook as a delusion inside of an illusion. It's like a double illusion. And people are having these big quarrels about politics, even devotees. Because they're thinking it's so important, we have to get the Democrats into office, or we have to get the Republicans into office, or this guy's bad, or this guy's good. And I don't mind, they may be correct. So many people may be correct in what they're doing, and I'm not against them. But there's no limit to the number of distractions in this material world. And most of us just go from one excuse to another. Well, kind of in the future, I'll be really strict on Ekadashi. I'll chant 64 rounds. But right now, we've got to get this guy voted into office. Or we have to stop this thing, or this great tragedy is going on in the world. And everybody has to pay attention to this tragedy. But the whole world is a tragedy. And if we don't understand that, we're an illusion. So Narottam Das Thakur is saying in the very beginning, he's saying, this is not, basically he's saying, this is not a religion. This is not just some act of piety. Because a lot of people, they chant Hare Krishna for piety. And there's a Hindu Samaj in India, and they have they vote for their Hindu politicians. But we're not interested in that. So, Nāradaḥ Thakur says an interesting thing in this verse. Let's look at this a little bit here. Anyabilasachari Gyanakarmi Padahari Koyamani Kori Bhajan Sadhu Sange Krishna Seva Napujiba Devi Deva E Bhakti Paramakarna. Okay, this is our definition of what is Param Bhakti, what is pure Bhakti. Now, our question that I want to focus on today. What is a necessity and what is the purport of Nāradaḥ Thakur's statement? Na pujiba devi deva. Don't worship the devis or the devas. You may say, well, this is the same thing Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right? I brought this verse up, Bhagavad Gita 9:23. Epanya devata bhaktya yajanti sharayanvitaha tepe mameva kunta yajantya vidi purvakam. And Krishna says that those persons who are bhaktas of anya devata, of other gods, he doesn't say demigods even. He says of other gods, yajanti shadayanvita, and worship them with faith. Tepi mami vakunteya. Actually, they're just worshiping me. But yajantya vidi avidi purvakam. They're doing it in the wrong way. So this is a very famous verse, and I think everybody's familiar with this. And it's something we hear in the New Bhakti program, don't worship Lord Shiva, don't worship Ganesh, don't worship Sarasvati or Lakshmi or this. Those are demigods. We don't want to do that. Andy, could you go close this door over here, please? Okay. You have to grab the keys so it doesn't get caught to the cloth thing. It's a little distracting for me. So someone may think that Nāradaḥ Thakur's statement is the same as Krishna's statement here in the Gita. Yes and no. Now, Prema-bhakti-candrika is a bit of a postgraduate study to Bhagavad Gita. It's not that worship of the devatas is necessarily all bad. Let me show you a statement from Bhaktivinoda Thakur from Chaitanya Siksamrita. Let's see here. What we got here? Siddha Hari Prabhu, would you like to read? You there?
Yes, Prabhu. It is prohibited to disrespect the demigods.
Can you understand what he's saying, Krishna Khan? Or do you have it on your screen? Okay. It's prohibited to disrespect the demigods. You can go ahead, Prabhu.
One should duly worship them and beg for their blessings to attain devotional service to Krishna. One should not disrespect any living entity. One should also respect the deity forms of various gods worshipped in various countries, because by doing so, persons of the lower level can graduate to the platform of devotional service. By disrespecting such gods, one's false ego increases, one's humility diminishes, and one's heart no longer remains fit to become the abode of devotional service.
You got it, Krishna?
kell őket kötelességszerűen imádni, és könyörögni az áldásukhoz azért, hogy elérjük a Krisnának végzett odaadó szolgálatot. Az embernek legyen tiszteletlen senki egyetlen élőlény iránt sem. A különböző istenek formáját is formájuknak végzett imádatot is tisztelni kell. Mert azzal, hogy ezt tesszük, az alacsonyabb szinten lévő emberek eljutnak lassan, vagy fokozatosan az odaadó szolgálat szintjére. Azzal, hogyha tiszteletlenek vagyunk más istenek iránt, az ember hamiságúra nő, az alázata csökken, és a szíve már nem lesz alkalmas arra, hogy az odaadó szolgálat lakhelye legyen.
Okay. So, this may seem very confusing to devotees. We told a story a few days ago in Debrecen here about how the devotees in Singapore, they when they first went there and started preaching, they started criticizing all the demigod worship. But then when it came time to try to make ISKCON a legal, recognized religion, the government told them you have to be under one of 4 different religions. Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, or Buddhism. And so they said you have to go talk to the Hindu Samaj. But when they went to the Hindu Samaj said, "We remember you guys. You're the ones who are criticizing Ganesh and Shiva and Durga. You're just a cult. Get out of here." And to this day, Krishna consciousness is not legal in Singapore. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's not just speaking about preaching here. He's saying that it's prohibited to disrespect the demigods. He says that we should duly worship them. And we should beg their blessings. To get bhakti. To get bhakti to Krishna. And Bhaktivinoda says we shouldn't disrespect any living entity. And when we go to different countries, we should also respect the different gods who are worshipped in other countries. Because if we give respect to them, then that'll encourage people on a lower level to come closer. And if we disrespect such gods, then we just become very proud, and we can't practice bhakti. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's point is similar to Narottam Thakur's point. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's commented on this verse from the Gita. Kitva vidi purvakam prapakam vidhim vinaiva yajantyataha puna avartante. He says that avidi purvaka, or worshipping in the wrong way. Means that there's no vidi, there's no rule there by which you're going to find me. And we understand if we worship Krishna, then automatically all the devas and devis are they're also worshipped. And there's a story, Narottam Das Thakur was preaching to a couple of young boys, and their father was a big worshipper of Durga Devi. And he became furious that Narottam was changing his boys into Hare Krishna devotees. So he was worshipping Durga that night. You please go and you smash them. And Durga came to him in a dream. And she said, "You fool, you've been killing so many animals and offering to me. But I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat these things. I eat at Govinda's restaurant." He said, "I'm a devotee of Krishna." And she said, "If you don't take shelter of Krishna, I'm going to destroy you." And Narottam Das Thakur is a great devotee of Krishna. So it's not that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't worship other personalities. I'll show you a few pictures. Maybe not that one. Let's see. This is from our last magazine. Maybe some of you have seen this. And this is an old Rajasthani painting. Be careful. Of the gopis worshipping Lord Shiva. Oh, thank you, Krishna. No. Okay, we're still alive. Okay. So the gopis, they worship Lord Shiva. Let's see here. I gotta be careful with my computer here. The gopis worship Lord Shiva. They also worship Suryadev. They worship Goddess Katyayani. In Surya Kund, which is not too far from Radha Kund, they regularly go and worship Suryadev. But that Suryadev actually is really Krishna. And here's a beautiful painting. Oops. Let's see. This is a beautiful painting that all the devotees here know from New Brajadam. And you see there's this beautiful pujari showing Radharani how to worship Suryadev. Actually, Krishna has taken the form of Suryadev, and Krishna has also taken the form of the Brahman. And you see his brahmachari partner there in saffron clothes with a big bowl of ladus, Madhu Mango. So the gopis, sometimes they worship Lord Shiva, sometimes they worship Suryadev. Sometimes the gopis, they worship Goddess Katyayani. In the Bhāgavatam, this 22nd chapter, the 10th canto, describes something about the worship, the gopis did of Goddess Katyayani. And they prayed to Katyayani Devi. Katyayani Mahamaye Mahayogin Yadishvari Nanda Gopasutam Devi Patime Kurute Namaha. This is the mantra that they chanted. Please, may we have the son of Nanda Maharaj as our husband. So how do we understand that the Brijbasis and many Vaishnavas, they're worshipping the devatas when Narottam Das Thakur is saying that we shouldn't? Krishna says we shouldn't. Well, first of all, we understand that if we worship Krishna, then everyone else becomes satisfied. It's a very important point. In the 5th canto of the Bhāgavatam, it's described there. Yata tora mula nisechanena tripyanti tat skanda bhujo pasakaha pranopaharat chayatendriyanam tataiva sarvahanam adjuteja. That just like if you have a tree, you have this plant here, I can spray the leaves, I can put water on the trunk, but it doesn't satisfy the whole tree. But if we give water to the root, then it satisfies everything. So watering, doing Krishna Bhakti, waters the root of all of our relationships. Another reason why Narottam Das Thakur, Vishwanath says in his commentary, another reason why Narottam Das Thakur is telling us na puja devi deva, that we shouldn't worship the devatas. Bhaktivinoda is saying that we should respect them. But Narottam says that if we want to worship Krishna, then that worship should be one-pointed. And if we're worshiping some other devas, it may hurt our bhakti to Krishna. I know so many devotees, they wear some gemstones. Or maybe they chant some mantra for one of the grahas, one of the planets. Prabhu, I'm in a Rahu period right now. So I chant this mantra, and it makes the troubles from Rahu go away. And I do it for my bhakti. Just like Prabhu, if you're sick, don't you go to a doctor and take medicine? But there's a difference between taking that medicine from a doctor and chanting that Rahu mantra. Because hopefully you're not worshiping that doctor, you're not worshiping that medicine and taking shelter of it in an absolute way. But we have to be very careful when we start worshiping other persons. And this is something we've seen quite often in our society. It's a very controversial thing. We've had so many bad experiences. And sometimes the devotees, they just say, just forget it, don't worship, don't respect anybody. We should understand that if you have a position of responsibility, then you're a kind of demigod. The Hari Bhakti Vilas describes Rajni chamatya jadoshaha patni papam sabartari tatasisarjitam papam guru prapnoti nishchitam. That a king, he has a counselor, someone who's advising him, a minister. And whatever that minister does, if he does some nonsense things, the sins that he commits comes to the king. Because it's going on in your administration. You should be careful. If you're a king, or if you're a manager, you're a leader. someone's advising you, someone's giving you help, and that person does some simple thing, you take some reaction from it. Patni papam sabartari. If the sins that a wife commits, they come to the husband. This is referring to especially a traditional Vedic relationship. The husband's giving shelter to the wife. Tatasishyarjitam papam guru prapnoti nishchitam. Nishchitam, you should know it's definitely a fact that all these people take the sins of these other persons. And tatasishyarjitam papam guru prapnoti. That Gurudev also takes the sin of the disciple. So we should be careful being a manager, being a leader. It's something like being a demigod. Tirthakar Prabhu, can you read? Krishna Kohn's translating, so maybe if you could read, if you could do like one sentence at a time and kind of pause. You have it? Okay, just don't go too fast. Go ahead.
It's only the yellow probably, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So, Vidura was Yamaraj. Not only he was Yamaraj, but he is one of the 12 great authorities mentioned in the Śāstra. One of them is Yamaraj. This is stated in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Yamaraj is one of the GBC of Krishna. As we have got 12 GBCs, similarly Krishna has got GBCs. And this is quotation: svayambhūr, nāradaḥ, śambhuḥ, kumāraḥ, kapilo, manuḥ, prahlādo, janako, bhīṣmo, balir, vaiyāsakir, vayam. 12 men are authorized to preach Krishna consciousness. So, we have to follow them. Mahājano, yena, gataḥ, panthāḥ. I'm reading. Therefore, we have created this GBC. So they should be very responsible men. Otherwise, they will be punished. They will be punished to become śūdras. Although Yamaraj is a GBC, he made a little mistake. So he was punished to become a śūdra. So those who are GBCs, they should be very, very careful to administer to the business of ISKCON. Otherwise, they'll be punished. As the post is very great, similarly, the punishment is also very great.
So Srila Prabhupada here is speaking in a very strong way. And we're not trying to disrespect the GBC. Actually, as Srila Prabhupada says, 12 men are authorized to preach Krishna consciousness, so we have to follow them. Therefore, we've created these GBC. So Prabhupada is saying we should follow them, we should give respect to them. But how do we give respect? Someone once asked my Guru Maharaj that he says, does it mean we have to accept the temple president as guru? And my Guru Maharaj said, no. It's a very important point. You can't pick who your temple president is, but you can pick your guru. And your guru is someone that you have to have faith in. So Narottam here, when he says that we shouldn't worship the devas, the devis of the devas, he doesn't just mean that we shouldn't worship Indra and Vayu and Chandra and Ganesh, but we should be careful and not be sentimental and worship different devotees either. We give respect to the devatas. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur was just saying, we were reading from him, that we pray, we serve the devatas, and we worship them, and we beg their blessings to get bhakti to Krishna. So we give respect to all living entities. And what to speak of someone who's a temple president, someone who's a GBC, someone who's a senior devotee. But we have to learn the subtle difference between that respect and worship. I cooperate with the society. So I give respect to everyone, not just the leaders, but to all devotees, but especially the leaders. Otherwise, how can the society go on? But no one is going to tell me who my guru is. That's my personal choice. And I may make a mistake. Then that's my personal fault. I can't blame anybody else. It's my choice. For cooperation within a community, we respect the leaders and authorities. And even we may respect them to the point that we ask them, please bless me that I can do bhakti. But yatatador mudana sechanena. We want to put water on the root of the tree, and the water on the root of all relationships is that we practice Krishna bhakti. So I don't have to worship that devotee, that manager. I can give respect to him. Maybe I give respect from a long distance because I don't exactly agree with him. But because it's necessary for society, some cooperation is there. But who I worship, that's something else. And when I respect them, or when I worship anyone, that worship is conducted by doing Krishna Kirtan and Krishna Katha. And that pours water on the root of the community. It pours water on the root of our relationships and our marriage and our friendship, and all of our relationships. So there's another statement from Srila Prabhupada here. Go ahead. Jagar, would you like to read something? This is similarly in a room conversation in Los Angeles, Srila Prabhupada said.
Yes, Guru. You need me to go slower?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be so slow. Krishna Kun has it on his screen too, I think.
Okay. If we do not understand the responsibility, just like in an establishment, one man is promoted. His first charge is doorkeeper. Then gradually he is given promotion. He may come to the post of the manager, just like in bank, it so happens. They must go through all the different stages of service. So when he becomes manager, if he does not understand the responsibility, then again he falls to the lowest position. Again, he has to strive for the top. So if we forget our responsibility and become like cats and dogs, then we are going to come back again to take the forms of cats and dogs.
So we should be very, very careful. Okay, so Prabhupada says that if someone forgets their responsibility, they may rise to the top of the company. But if they don't understand their responsibility, okay, then again they fall down to their lowest position. And again they have to strive for the top. The Prabhupada says, so if we forget our responsibility and become like cats and dogs, then we're going to come back again to take the forms of cats and dogs. So I'd like to tell you a story. This is from the Uttarakanda of the Valmiki Ramayana. It's actually chapter 108. It's described there that one morning Lord Ramachandra, he woke up early. And he called for his court. And he had many different ministers there. And at that time, Lord Ramachandra called for Lakshman. Hey, Lakshman, go outside, see if anyone has any complaints. Again, Lakshman went outside and looked around. Came back and said, there's no problem. Nobody has any problems. Lord Ram said, go again. To make sure that people are happy. Otherwise, I'm not being a good manager. So Lakshman went out again, and this time he noticed something he hadn't seen before. There was a dog. The dog was sitting by the palace gate. And there was blood coming from its head. And the dog looked up at Lakshman and started crying. Crying dog sounds. And Lakshman said, my dear dog, what's wrong? Tell me. So this is in Treta Yuga. Lakshman can talk to dogs. And that dog, he said, my pranams to you. I would like to speak to Lord Ramachandra directly. And then Lakshman said that if anything you have to tell him, you can tell me. I'm his brother. And the dog, then he replied, Devagari nipagari dvija bhīṣmo sivayatata vani satakratas chaiva suryot vayus tatistiti natra yogastu somitre yoninam adama vayam. I'm a dog. Dogs are not allowed in the temple. Dogs are not allowed in the house of Brahmins. Dogs are not allowed in the king's palace. I can't enter. I'm very sorry. So you tell Lakshman, you please tell Lord Ram that unless he gives me permission, I can't enter into the palace. So Lakshman came and he said, my dear Ram, there's a dog, a complaint. But he says he can't come in because he's a dog. Lord Ram says, whoever he is, you bring him in now. And so then the dog came in and said, my dear Lord Ram, you're the best of kings. I'm putting my head on your lotus feet. A very smart dog. So I want your mercy. Please don't be angry what I'm going to say. And Lord Ram said, you speak without fear. Tell me what is the problem. It's very important that a leader doesn't show favorites. And they distribute justice in a fair way. Otherwise, people are not satisfied. So the dog said, I didn't do anything wrong. But there was this Brahmin. His name was Siddha. And he just came in for no reason. He started kicking me and beating me with a stick, and he broke my head. Lord Ram said, hey, you bring this Siddha. He sent someone to bring him. Brahmin came. Lord Ram said, did you hit this dog? And Siddha, he says, well, I was having a bad day. My wife, she was arguing with me. I was in a very bad mood. And I came out, and the dog was in front of me. And I said, hey, get out of my way. But he was moving really slow. So I took and whacked him. You should be respectful. I'm a Brahmin. And he said, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I was angry. I shouldn't have been angry. So, my dear king, you should punish me however you see fit. So then Lord Ramachandra, he turned to his ministers, Kashyapa Muni, Vasishta Muni, all these great rishis. And he said, what kind of punishment should we give to the Brahmin? And those rishis, they said, well, this is a very difficult question. Because the śāstra says that someone who's a Brahmin, who's worshipping the Lord, Brahmin means someone who's worshipping the Lord, they should never be punished. So we're not really sure. So Lord Ramachandra then said, we'll ask the dog. And Lord Ram asked him, so my dear dog, what kind of punishment does Brahman? He beat you, he broke your head open, it was very bad. What kind of punishment should he get? The dog said he was very bad to me. He hurt me. And he deserves to be punished. There should be justice. And there is a way I would like you to punish him. Lord Ram said, okay, what is it? He said, first of all, I would like it if you give him some very expensive, nice clothes. Lord Ram said, but that's a little strange. Anything else? Again? Yes? You should also give him some nice necklaces and jewelry, some expensive gold jewelry and things. Anything else? Yes. You should bring a big elephant and let him ride on the elephant. And you should have a procession with a band, a marching band. And you should And you should take him to the nearby temple and you should make him the temple president. You make him the mahant of that temple. That Brahmin was smiling. He's thinking, it's a very good day. And all the rishis, they were very confused. This is not a punishment, this is a blessing. Lord Ramachandra said, you may be very wise rishis, but you don't really understand. The dog understands. And my dear dog, how are you giving this blessing? This is a blessing you're giving to the Brahmin. It's supposed to be a punishment. Please explain, what are you doing? And the dog said, my dear Lord Ram, in my last life, I was a temple president of that temple. And I became proud because of my position. And I started treating other people like they were my servants. I started abusing the devotees. But still, I was basically a pretty gentle person. But because of the offenses that I committed in that service to the devotees in the temple, I had to take birth as a dog. Now this Brahmin, he's crazy. This guy is super puffed up, really angry. If this happened to me, who knows what's going to happen to him? He says, so this is the best punishment that you can give him. So we may be a little confused by that. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't misunderstand and think that all management is a bad thing, is a demoniac thing. Srila Prabhupada is described in his purport. Let's see. Jaigor, would you like to read some more?
Sure. Just this paragraph here. When Priyabrata's father, Swayambhū Manu, requested him to accept the responsibility of ruling over the world, he did not welcome the suggestion. This is the symptom of a great liberated devotee. Even though engaged in worldly affairs, he does not take pleasure in them, but remains always absorbed in the Lord's service. While thus serving the Lord, he deals externally with worldly affairs without being affected. By serving the lotus feet of his spiritual master, Prince Priyavrata very soon attained the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness. This is the only way to advance in spiritual life.
Okay. So it's not so simplistic. It's not just that we should hate all managers. We can point out the fact Srila Prabhupada himself was a manager of ISKCON. But Srila Prabhupada, he didn't relish that management position. He wanted to preach and he wanted to translate. But Prabhupada sometimes complained that there's no one else to do this service. So it depends on how we do that service. And in this verse, in Prema-bhakti-candrika, Narottam Das Thakur is giving us in a nutshell what is pure bhakti. And by saying na pujyaba devi deva, it has a very deep purport. Sometimes people, they tell you that you're not a pure devotee unless you respect the temple president. And you must worship the temple president, otherwise you're not making advancement. You're committing an offense. And they're Srila Prabhupada's representative. And they are Prabhupada's representative. But we don't worship them. We give respect to them. Just as we respect everyone. We also respect the demigods. We also respect senior devotees. It's very, very important. If we don't do that, how are we going to please Gurudev? How are we going to please Srila Prabhupada? When this devotee asked my Guru Maharaj that, I'm just trying to think if I can find the statement from him easily, that what does it mean that some people say that we should, that the temple president is our guru also. And my Guru Maharaj said, no, we respect him because he's doing the service. We respect everyone who's doing some service. But who I worship as my Gurudev, that's my personal business. I don't do that in a sentimental way. So it's an important principle. Sometimes devotees, they complain. They say, well, I came and they gave me this manager and he wasn't a good person and they're nonsense. I know what it is. I have that quote right here. I forgot. We printed in our magazine about Putana. This is a 10th magazine we did. We called this Putana, false gurus, institutions, and the holy name. After we made this, one devotee, Madan Mohan Prabhu, he came from Australia, and he said that Mukunda Maharaj saw this magazine. He was asking, who made this? And he said Mukunda Maharaj liked it very much. So I was very encouraged. So here's a question to Guru. Should we accept someone as an authority if they have material attachments and they're not situated on the spiritual platform? And Guru Maharaj, she says, we accept because we're in a society. Someone may be GBC in some region of the world, so according to the management system, he's an authority. But by the spiritual system, unless I'm convinced, I cannot accept him as an authority. He said that it's up to me, I have my independence. There's another statement from my Guru Maharaj I'll share you on the screen. I just found
Van
it.
egy másik kijelentés is a Guru Maharajon, akkor ezt is mindjárt megmutatom.
Just a second. There it is. Question. It's often said that a genuine guru must be a pure devotee. Understanding that, how do we see that today so many persons are accepting the position of guru? And Guru Maharaj says that there's two sides, the spiritual side and the organizational side. And this is an organizational matter. Unless you're allowed to accept disciples, the organization will collapse. There'll be no cooperation. People will just quarrel. Say, oh, he wants to be guru. All right, you do this thing. You maintain the society. This is an organizational matter. They want to be gurus. They want some position. This is material, nothing else. They're doing some work for the society. They're general heads managing the zone. So how else can a worldwide organization be managed?
És ők irányítanak bizonyos zónákat. Ezért ugyan máshogyan lehetne vezetni egy nemzetközi szervezetet. So this is the same point again that Narottam Das Thakur is making here. Na pujiba devi deva. Give respect to everyone. Be focused on worshiping Krishna. Well, what about Gurudev? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it says, Tate Krishna Bhaji Kori Guru Seva. That your Guru Seva is your Krishna Bhajan. My Krishna Bhajan is how I serve Gurudev. Gurudev is pleased by that. Not that we chant Jai Gurudev, Jai Gurudev, Jai Gurudev. We were speaking the other day, this thing. So I want to go ahead and stop there. It's a little late. Some of the devotees here have to go soon. There's a lot of comments here. Vajula Rasiga had to go. Brajabanita also had to go. Tirthakar Prabhu had to go. Okay. But anybody here have any reflections or comments they want to share? Nitai Bhavana Prabhu? Krishna Kun, you got to speak really loud. I don't know if you can speak loudly enough over there. You speak too soft. They won't be able to hear you. I'm translating for them. You can come over here, yeah. I'm not going to turn this camera because last time I did it shut the thing off. Maybe I can turn it like this. Let's see. Yeah, I can. Okay, this is Nitai Bhavana Prabhu and Krishna Kun. I was listening. You have to speak really loud, Krishna Kun. This is listening. And Nitai Bhavana, you're speaking so Gorni Tai can hear you also. As I was listening to this session now, the whole last 20 years became alive. For me, it's always been a problem to understand what I'm supposed to do with the institution or in the institution. And how will I get to love of God from this? I came here to get Krishna Prema. After a few months, I found myself in a leadership chair. position.
Úgy lettem kinevezve vezetőnek, hogy itt sem jöttem.
And I was nominated as a leader without even being here at the time.
Nem kellett hozzá nagy kisnapot, hogy megértsem, hogy ez valamifajta elrendezés kell, hogy legyen.
I didn't need to have very deep Krishna consciousness to understand that this must be some kind of arrangement.
De igazából értettem, hogy nem vagyok alkalmas erre a szerepre.
And I definitely understood that I am not qualified for this role.
És ez a kérdés ott volt, hogy akkor miért kell nekem ezt csinálni?
And the question was, why on earth am I supposed to do this then?
Próbáltam a gurumtól megtudni, hogy nekem ezt tényleg kell csinálnom.
I tried to find out from my guru, do I really need to do this?
Mondta,
Do I really have to do this?
ki fogja csinálni?
He said, who else will do it?
És akkor igazából szép lassan, nagyon lassan értettem meg.
And slowly, gradually, very slowly I understood.
Hogy a gurunak azért ez a vágya, hogy én ezt csináljam.
That my guru has the desire for me to do this because
hogy idővel meg tudja engem ajándékozni az Isten.
so that in due course of time he could give me love of God, love of Krishna.
Van ez a vers, ez a sussuslós, a dár, azt én ászoljuk, a csiszám, és évanát, hogy én lelki tanítómestertől ad nekem vágyat, attól, hogy szolgálom őt.
But there is this verse in this case which says that by us performing this service for our spiritual master, he will give us a desire.
De az a szolgálat, amiben bele voltam rakva, az egy intenzív tisztulást kellett, hogy eredményezzen.
But the service that I was given had to result in intense purification.
És akkor itt jön az, amiről beszéltünk, hogy megérteni azt, hogy minden élőlény tiszta.
And this is where what you talked about comes in. That we have to respect every living entity.
Egy vezetőt nem fognak tisztelni, ha minden vezetettet nem tisztel.
No leader will be respected unless he respects all those that he's trying to lead.
És ha nem tisztel minden vezetettet, akkor nem lesz sikeres a szolgálat.
And unless he respects everyone that he leads, he cannot be successful in his service.
Mert joggal őt se fogják tisztelni.
Because with every right, they will not respect him.
És igazából nekem ez ad erőt, hogy ezt tudjam csinálni.
And for me, this is what gives me strength to do this.
Hát nincs más értelme.
Otherwise, it has no meaning.
Simple.
One of my favorite managers, around him, I've been staying with him for a long time. His vision of management is to serve all the devotees.
Az egyik kedvenc vezetőm nagyon sokáig, és ezt tényleg tudom mondani, mert nagyon sokáig voltam körülötte, vagyok körülötte, az ő látásmódja arról, hogy hogyan kell vezetni, az az, hogy ő szolgálja az összes baktát.
And he really doesn't think himself, he's a Prabhupada disciple in GBC, but he doesn't see himself like that. He really sees that he wants to serve all the devotees. And he'll wash dishes, he'll wash clothes, he'll do so many things.
Buy train tickets. És annak ellenére, hogy ő Prabhupád tanítmány, idősebb bakta, tényleg nem az a látásmódja saját magáról, hogy ő idősebb bakta, hanem az, hogy ő minden baktát szolgál, és bármit megcsinál, amire szükség van, mosogat, vonatjegyet vesz, amit kell.
Anybody else with anything you want to share? Reflections or anything?
Aki más szeretne megosztani valamit?
Prabhupada?
Nekem csak a végén volt az a gondolat, hogy amiről talán egyszer már beszéltünk, hogy mennyire fontos,
She's hiding behind the plant.
hogy külön válasszuk azt, hogy vannak menedzsereink, és vannak lelki vezetőink. és hogy ne várjuk el.
So, towards the end, what you were talking about, we spoke about this before, but this is really something important to me, that how important it is to separate managers from spiritual leaders.
És hogy ne legyenek hamis elvárásaink se az egyikkel, se a másikkal szemben.
So that we do not have to have false expectations towards either one of them.
Ez nagyon sokat segíthet nekünk ahhoz, hogy egészségesen tudjunk mozogni a szervezeten és a közösségen belül.
To move in a healthy way within the organization and the society, the community.
Very good.
Én lelki erőszaknak nevezem.
Rape means when you a man forces himself on a woman.
Ugye az erőszak azt jelenti, hogy ha valaki megerőszakol egy nőt, akkor rá kényszeríti magát.
Spiritual rape is when someone forces himself on you.
A lelki erőszak azt jelenti, ha valaki rád kényszeríti magát.
And they try to force you that you must accept, you must be humble, you must accept this person as a spiritual authority.
Azt mondják, hogy muszáj ezt a személyt elfogadnod, mint lelki vezetőt, lelki autoritást.
I find it very, very disturbing.
Ezt nagyon-nagyon zavarónak találom.
It works nicely for a little while.
Egy ideig szépen működik.
But as soon as that spiritual authority, that leader has some problems,
De amint ennek a lelki autoritásnak problémája lesz,
then it's a huge catastrophe for the devotees.
akkor egy hatalmas katasztrófa.
And to this day, we've traveled in these parts of Europe that 30 years ago, there was thousands of devotees, and now there's just hardly handfuls of devotees.
És utazunk itt Európában időnként, és 30 éve itt sok ezer bakta volt, és ma meg vannak olyan helyek, ahol csak pár maréknyi.
I think it's a really terrible kind of violence to try to force someone to have faith in a leader, in a spiritual faith, just because they're a manager.
Én azt gondolom valóban, hogy ez egy borzasztó erőszak. Az, hogyha rákényszerítjük emberekre, kényszerítünk baktákat arra, hogy legyen lelki hitük valakiben, aki egy pozíciója szerinti vezető.
It's so important. You can't legislate faith. You can't make a rule, and everybody has to have faith in Andi.
Nem lehet az, hogy törvénybe iktatjuk a hitet. Nem lehet az, hogy azt mondjuk, hogy mindenkinek kell, hogy legyen hite Andiban.
We can't do that. Anybody else with anything you want to share? Can you speak in Hungarian?
His question is whether the same principles are true in choosing a spiritual master.
Yes, very much. Don't accept a spiritual master just because everybody else does.
Ne fogadj el valakit lelki mesterednek csak azért, mert mindenki más őt fogadja el.
He must be bona fide, Prabhu. He has 10,000 disciples.
Van 10,000 tanítványa.
So did Adolf Hitler.
Hitlernek is vagy volt is.
Numbers don't mean a whole lot.
A számok nem jelentenek sokat.
We have to cry in our heart.
Sírnunk kell a szívünkben.
And Krishna will send his guru.
És akkor Krishna fog nekünk.
Would you accept someone as a wife just because you take a vote in Govinda's restaurant? Who should be my wife?
Elfogadtak meg feleségedről. Igen. Csak azért, mert a Govindában megszavaztátok.
And whoever the majority devotees say should be your wife, that you'll accept that?
Amit a többség mond, ő lesz a feleséged.
It's a good idea. I don't think anybody would be so foolish to do that.
Nem hiszem, hogy bárki is ilyen ostoba lenne, hogy ezt elfogadná.
But we do the same thing with Guru.
De a lelki tanítómesterrel bizony
So
megcsináljuk
much of the
ugyanezt.
time, we should take our time before you accept a wife, before you accept a husband,
Mielőtt elfogadunk feleséget, férjet,
especially before you take a Guru.
és főként lelki tanítómestert várjuk ki a megfelelő
Hare Krishna. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Anybody online? If anybody needs to go, I know you guys
Ha valakinek mennie kell, tudom, hogy holnap
have things going on tomorrow. That's why I asked everybody here, because they have to get up tomorrow and cook for the restaurant. And if they don't cook for the restaurant, we don't get any prasadam tomorrow. So, Hare Krishna. Anybody here online? Let's see. How about Natalia? Would you like to share anything?
Thank you very much. Yes, it was for just I took for myself. Yes, it was important to hear that the whole world is tragedy, and there are no limit to distractions. And the Krishna bhajan is the most important, and the Guru Seva is even more important. And this kshatriya nature should be somehow pacified, and this listening about Krishna should come on the first place, first of all. So just that.
who is still here, who I need to translate
All right.
or not.
Thank you. And Natalia, you've been through so many things too. We've discussed this different times before. Bhakti has to be something voluntary. It can't be something just that we're ordered to do. And especially if we're bullied because someone's a manager or someone's in a male body and you're just a mataji. you're just a non-initiated devotee. We shouldn't bully persons either. Bhakti has to be something which is voluntary. And this bullying is very, very, very bad.
It is just inside of me. There is this tension between between two I don't know, inclinations. One inclination is to defend people, and another inclination is to feel Krishna, to Krishna's presence, and sometimes they don't fit together, and so.
Krishna will whisper in our heart, and he may tell you, this person, there's something wrong. And they may be
Yes.
person all the animals are worshiping him. He's the king of the animals. Why? Because he's a blue jackal. And no one's ever heard of a blue jackal before. Or everybody's saying the king is so special, the way he's dressed, but he doesn't have any clothes on. But everybody else is saying we have to follow our heart. But we should do it in a way that's not going to cause offenses, because we really want to respect all living entities. But at the same time, we want to protect innocent devotees. And we can do that by the process of bhakti. That's what we're trying to do today. And it's not necessary to say anything bad about any particular persons, because last week it was such and such person who did some bad thing. But next week it might be you, or it might be me who does such a thing. And instead of speaking about persons, we should speak about principles. And we should always care about the devotees. And even if they have problems, if they want to come back, as Srila Prabhupada said, we should have some place, maybe on the bottom of the rung, not on the top level.
And now I remember that the weapon of Lord Chaitanya was beauty and kirtan.
Yeah. Very much. I forgot, Gorni Taipa, how can I forget about you? All the devotees here are just running out now because they have things to do. But Gorni Tai Prabhu, for you right now, it is, let's see, it's, time is it 6? It's, oh my God, like 11:30 at night, right? No, but.
You came back 1 hour, so it's just 10, 12.
10, 12.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not so late.
It's 3.5, so here it's 10 till 6. And there it's 3.5 hours later.
Yeah, no, 4.5.
4.5. Okay.
Yeah.
You have any reflections, anything, Prabhuji? You want to share?
I have minimum 2 questions to clear up things. First is that, so I see all your classes, when you go through these verses or very different topics, you try to help us to understand the author's mind, how the author composed the verse, and also to do another thing, because the authors are not for contemporary persons. So you give us another layer to apply it into our life. Like Srila Prabhupada many times mentioned that impersonal, sunyavad, nirvishesha shunyavad, and devotees ask, who is this impersonal? You don't see them, but you are that. So that's what makes like the words, the expressions in Sanskrit and these words are also applying us. Like today you did this, the demigods, and you made them following Srila Prabhupada's understanding that demigods could be like appointed leaders in our preaching societies. So that's so in this sense, I would like to ask that we see that previous verse and this verse have a little changes, and I didn't follow. Maybe I'm just was not aware that why Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's, Narottam Das, why he changed this first expression from Anyabila Shita Shunyam for Chadi. So what means that changing? What he want to express from the original verse? He wanted to stress something, or so? Can you say that why this verse change came?
Let's look at it a little bit. I'll put it back on the screen. It's an important question. Thank you. That chadi means, they translated here, to give up. Mm-hmm. So Narottam, Rupa Goswami says Anyabhilasita Shunyam. There shouldn't be any Anyabhilas. So why does he say chadi instead of Shunyam? By saying chadi, he indicates that, okay, you may have some Anyabhilas, right? Otherwise you can't give it up. But because you have some Anyabhilas, you should give that up. So, and Jnana Karma Parihari, again, the Jnana and Karma Parihari, you let that go. Don't be attached to those things. You let those things go. Whereas Rupa Goswami says Jnana Karmari Anabritam, they shouldn't cover. So there's a subtle difference between Anabritam and Parihari, between Chadi and Shunyatam. Ultimately, Narottam Das Thakur, because he's quoting, first of all, he's quoting Rupa Goswami's verse, and then he gives this is his commentary on it. So we should have Anyabhilasita Shunyam, but he's saying chadi, that we should give that up. In other words, we may have some of that, but we should be actively giving that up, and at least not be attached to that thing, and understand that I have to give that thing up. In Jnana Karma Parihari, there may be some Jnana and some Karma which may help me, but I shouldn't cover Bhakti. And therefore, at some point, I should give up my attachment for them, because that's a problem with Jnana and Karma. By that Jnana, if I decide I want to do really well in class, and my teacher is teaching Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So I start reading Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and I want to get good grades in the class. So I'm studying it like anything. But at some point, I have to give up that motivation of getting good grades and being a big person in the class. Karma, I may come to Krishna consciousness because those devotees are such nice persons, and I really appreciate Vaishnava culture, and I really want to practice this Vedic culture and learn to be a good Brahmin and learn to have proper etiquette and everything. And that's very, very good. But at a certain point, that may help me in bhakti, But at a certain point, I have to give up attachment for that and just take shelter of bhakti. Kaya mani kori bi bhajan. And just in my mind, body, and my words, I just do Krishna bhajan. And I do that by sadhu sangha Krishna seva, by serving the devotees, by serving Krishna in association with the devotees. And na puji be devi deva, because those devotees are also devatas, but I don't worship them separate. That a bhakti paramakarana. That's the topmost understanding of bhakti. He doesn't say here that anyabhilasita shunyan. We have to have no anyabhilas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Bhajan Rahasya, he speaks about what is Sudanam Bhajan. And he says, interestingly, that Sudanam Bhajan means, and he quotes a verse from the 11th canto, the Bhagavatam, which I'm trying to remember. He says, where Krishna says to Uddhava that someone may have, they may develop some faith. Jatashadama katasu. They may develop faith in my Krishna kata. But at the same time, he says they're not able to give up their nonsense behavior. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's definition of what is Sudha Bhajan. They can't give that up. And Krishna says that in spite of that, they should go on worshiping me. Let me just find this verse real quick for a second. What is the first line again? Jata Shada. Jata Shadha. Jata Shadha. Yeah, that's it. Mukatasu nirvinasai vakarmisu veda dukatmakam kaman. Paritige pinishvara. I'm going to put this on the screen here. I'm going to try to put this on the screen. Let's see. I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can. Okay. This is 11:20, 27 to 28. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's definition of Sudanam Bhajan. Jata Shadama Katasu Nivina Sarva Karmasu Veda Dukatmakam Kamam Paritige Panishara. That someone, Jata Shadama Katasu, Jata means to be born. They have some faith finally in my Hari Kata. And they know Nirvina Sarva Karmasu that all types of karma is bad. Veda Dukatmakam Kaman, they understand it's just going to cause me suffering. But Parityage Pyanishara, Anishara, they don't have the strength to give it up. So what should they do? Krishna says, Tato bhajeta mam pritaha. Just go on worshiping me. Shradhala, with faith, drita nishya, with firm conviction. And jusamanash tatan kaman, even while you're doing your nonsense activity. But dukkha darkam shagarhayan, your heart should be burning. Gara comes from the same, Garayan means to repent, but Garayan comes from the same word as Agni, or fire. It indicates some heat, some fire of repentance. And while you're doing that sense gratification, dukkha darkam shagarhayan, you're lamenting. You're feeling very, very sad. Why? I'm doing this thing. This is really a bad thing. So this is Narottam Das Thakur's point, as I see it, based on Bhaktivinoda Thakur's statement, that anyabhilas chadi, we give up these anyabhilas, but we have to give that up. But even meaning giving it up, maybe you're not giving it up yet, but at least in your mind you should understand, and that's the difference between bhakti that's purely practiced and a pure devotee. There's two different things. Someone may be a pure practicing bhakta, because they're not taking shelter of karma, jnana, or yoga. They understand that anyabhilas is bad. They're not worshiping the demigods. But parityage panishara, they can't give it up. But still, they're a pure devotee in their understanding. And that's a very important point to digest. Is that helpful, Manitai Prabhu?
Yes, it's cleared up more that he made a little changes from the original verse, but that changes helps us to understand what he doesn't.
Yeah. It's not, I wouldn't call it changes exactly. I would say more like he's fluffing it out. He's explaining it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And the other question is that you mentioned that we are not supposed to make varnashram dharma. So how you make it that Prabhupada told that 50% of my...
No, I'm not saying we shouldn't do varnashram dharma. We should do varnashram dharma. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do bhakti shastri. We should do bhakti shastri. But it's not that bhakti shastri is everything. It's not that varnashram dharma is everything. We do bhakti shastri because it'll help me to be more fixed in bhakti. We do varnashram dharma because it's a safety net which will help protect me from falling down, and it'll help to uplift some other people. It'll help to keep them from falling down. But our program by itself is not varnashram dharma. That 50% thing, by the way, that's an interesting subject. I just want to comment on this. I'm not trying to argue with anyone. This is just an observation. And I've made this observation sometimes with different devotees. Some of them got upset with me. So I'm not trying to disturb anybody. This is just an observation. No one has been able to disagree with my comment because it's a fact. The fact is that Srila Prabhupada, he was never recorded saying this 50% thing. There's zero recording. Prabhupada told at least two devotees that we know of, Bhakti Charu Maharaj and who was the other one, you remember? I can't remember his name. Prabhupada, Abhiram Prabhu. Thank you, Krishna. He told privately, them, and we don't doubt them. We give them all respect. But at the same time, just as a preacher in this movement and understanding a lot of different controversies and things, I'm a little careful how I speak about things. And because Srila Prabhupada never put that in writing, because it wasn't even recorded, Prabhupada didn't make it in a letter, he never said it in a lecture. And if it was 50% of his mission, then my question is, why didn't he speak about it 50% of the time? That would also make sense. But I don't doubt Abhiram Prabhu or Bhakti Charu Maharaj. He Prabhupada definitely, I'm sure he said that thing, and we should respect that. And Prabhupada, there's many other recordings that Prabhupada did state things clearly, and Prabhupada in his writings, in his books, Prabhupada was very clear that he wanted varnashram dharma and why he wanted it. So as followers of Srila Prabhupada, we want to establish that. But I'm not personally convinced that it's actually 50% as much as bhakti is. I don't think it's as important as being Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada said different things about that. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur said many things about that. My personal understanding, and this is where devotees are free to disagree with me, it's fine. My personal understanding of the 50% comment is that Srila Prabhupada was saying that 50% of my mission, and that's what I heard from Abhiram, that Prabhupada had a mission, that he wanted to also establish varnashram. But Prabhupada's main activity was to establish Krishna consciousness. That's the activity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu said, Eho bhaya age kaha ar. He told Ramananda Roy, this varnashram is external. Please speak something more. We want Daivi varnashram. And I see that was something Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish. And as his followers, we should want to do that. So it's a little controversial. This is my humble understanding of it. I'm not trying to argue with anyone else about it because my understanding is I think that everybody has a right to follow, and they should follow their particular guru and what he says about those things. And I understand different gurus will say different things. I know Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, for example, and some other persons, like they stress very strongly this because they feel it's very important for some of the disciples. And I'm not disagreeing with that whatsoever. Different gurus will say different things to different disciples at different times. I'm just speaking my humble opinion about this. So, is that okay, Gornitai?
Yeah, my understanding is that Prabhupada established Sanatana Dharma. And we don't have to, and we have to learn first that what is Sanatana Dharma. And we learn that and we fix that, then we go for making Varnashram Dharma. to fix the persons who start to understand Sanatana Dharma, but they are not fixed to practice.
That's a beautiful comment. Thank you. Yeah, so before we can do Vanashram, we have to have an understanding of what is Sanatana Dharma, what is Sudha Bhakti, at least philosophically. And then we can speak about that thing. That's very, very good. Otherwise, we run a risk that we're not going to please Srila Prabhupada. We may have perfect villages that are self-sufficient and nice Brahmins and this and that and the other, but if they're not Krishna conscious, I don't think it's going to please Srila Prabhupada. We have to have the whole thing. Nice comment. Thank you, Prabhu.
One other question, sorry if I'm too much time taking. So if we go back to a few hundred years, so what would be the original thought of Narottam Das Thakur be really stressing this, don't worship demigods? In that time, many persons where he preached, they were really inclined to worship demigods, and then he started to change them.
Yeah, Narottam Das Thakur was especially preaching in West Bengal and in Bangladesh, and especially Kali worship and Durga worship are very, very prominent, and Shiva worship. So, yeah, practically, and there's many stories about Narottam Das Thakur in his life, how different Devata worshippers or Devi worshippers were converted by him, and how we mentioned this story about Durga Devi coming in the dream of that devotee and that man and chastising him. I'm not accepting your worship. You should follow Narottam Das Thakur. Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. How about Hari Chandra Prabhu? Do you want to share anything? Nice to see you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, everybody. I'm also happy. I have few points. I would like if you checking reality my understanding. One is about the one of the story about the Durga worshipper who he did offense against Narottam, and how I understand it, it leads to great profit for him because he saw Durga directly, he received instruction from her, and now he know that Narottam is pure devotee, and for me it's a great benefit. How it is, how I understand.
Sadhu, sadhu. Srila Prabhupada spoke like that. So there's one in our last Shiva magazine. You can read. There was a conversation the devotees had with Prabhupada in Chicago, and they were saying that there was some man who was worshiping Shiva, but he wouldn't worship Krishna. And Prabhupada said that is okay. If he pleases Lord Shiva, then Lord Shiva will bless him. He'll become a devotee of Krishna. So this was Durga's blessing. You're correct. That Durga revealed to him that Narottam is a great devotee. So he got some benediction from that. And therefore, in that sense too, we should be careful and not just criticize all the demigods. We call them demigods. That word, for a lot of people in India, they really don't like that phrase, demigods. Better you say devas or devis like that. It's a lot more respectful. Now, ISKCON devotees have this new word, we say demigods, which means like a lower god, and it really upsets them. And that's originally in our Vaishnava culture, we respect everyone, amanina manadena, and what to speak of the devatas and the devas, we also respect them, but we do it in a one-pointed way. When we respect everyone else, we respect other devotees, we respect managers, but we do it in a context to help me get Krishna bhakti. And if I respect the demigods, the devas, if I respect Lord Shiva or Goddess Durga, I do it. I pray to Katyayani Devi, please give me Krishna bhakti. I pray to Lord Shiva that you please grant me residence in Vrindavan. Vrindavanavani Pate Jayasoma Soma Mole Sanandana Sanatana Naradejan. We offer this prayer every day, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's prayer. Is that okay? Does that help some, Prabhuji? Thank you, Hari Chandra Prabhu. I appreciate it.
Should
Okay.
I? It's about when in traditional Vaishnava society, the sins of wife going to her husband, and it does the same rule is valid for Western society, like Vaiyāsakir and the same.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that it's not such a formal thing. It's not like a mathematical formula. As soon as someone gets married, all the karma comes from the wife to the husband. But it depends. The point is that whoever's in charge of the relationship. And sometimes in the West, even in devotee relationships, I've seen sometimes the woman is in charge in the relationship. And we may laugh about that in our ISKCON thing, but that's just Western culture. And then in that case, if she's taking the leading role, and it may not be a formal kind of thing, but practically she's bullying her husband and she's pushing him to do this and that. And he's just, yes, dear, whatever you say, dear, right away, dear. And he's just going along with whatever his wife says in that way, then she'll be taking his karma, isn't it? Or if you have someone working for you and they're doing some bad thing, you're going to take some of their karma. Or if you're a manager, you're going to take some of their karma. So when devotees want to have these kind of traditional relationships, and we talk about, the man being in charge and the woman being subservient, and I understand that. I see that in India. I've seen many people like that. But then they should understand if the husband wants to do like that, that's a big responsibility, and you're going to take the karma of the wife. You have to be ready for that, and it's also not something that the husband can just inform her that this is the rules and this is the way it's going to go. I mean, ideally, before the marriage takes place, there should be some discussion. And because in Kali Yuga especially, we have two different people. They're both trying to be on top and trying to be in charge and things. So there has to be some discussion. Who's going to decide things finally? And how are we going to get along? And generally, Srila Prabhupada encouraged certainly that the man should be in charge. And so that I would suggest should be a discussion before the marriage. Not just that you get married and after the marriage you just say, okay, you're a stupid woman and you're lower than me and now I'm in charge and you got to do whatever I tell you because we're married. It doesn't quite work like that, especially in the West. But there should be some agreement. And if the woman can understand and appreciate, it'll be good for me, because it's also nice to have someone tell them what to do. And if the woman respects the man like that and sees the man like her guru, like her guru pati, and really the respect is there, because that respect is the basis of the relationship, not just some external formality. If that respect is there, then that can work. But if the respect is not there and someone just tries to artificially impose it, then that's a kind of rape. That's a kind of forced respect. Forced respect is rape. Whether someone's trying to force you to respect the temple president or the GBC, or a man's trying to force a wife to respect him. Look, you got to follow me because I'm the husband. That's why. But it should be natural. A real leader is someone who guides out of care, and the wife or the children or the persons in the temple, they feel love from that person. They feel respect from that person. And they have respect for that person. And naturally, out of respect, they follow them. Krishna Kun wants to make some comment.
My understanding was always that, I could be wrong, but my understanding was always that just like a spiritual master accepts karma for the disciple in proportion to their surrender to them.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, the husband accepts karma for his wife in proportion to their surrender to him. This is my understanding.
And the same thing with children, and therefore Guru Nishashat Svajano Nishashat, in the 5th canto of the Bhāgavatam, it said you shouldn't be a guru, you shouldn't be a parent, you shouldn't be a husband, unless you're Krishna conscious. And to the extent that someone surrenders, if someone accepts someone as guru, and they say, I'm accepting initiation from you. That's a big thing. And Srila Prabhupada has taught us that if that person later on falls down and they're not following things properly, then the guru has to take the sins of that disciple. So it depends on the relationship. It should be something which is agreed upon and understood. That's my humble suggestion, strong suggestion in this culture today, because it's not the same. And I've seen so many people. I remember one 40-year-old Prabhupada disciple got married to a 16-year-old Guru Kuli. And everybody said, well, it's Vedic, Prabhu. And it didn't work. The marriage didn't last very long. And I've heard of a number of different marriages where someone marries two different girls. I have a friend in Los Angeles who married two ladies at one time. And Prabhupada said that's there. It's in Vedic culture. But in our culture today, it's very difficult for an older man to marry a young girl. In our culture today, it's very difficult for a 12-year-old girl to get married. It's just not accepted in society. And people are going to freak out if they do that. But Prabhupada says it in his books, and it is ideal if the culture accepts that. But if you try to get a 12-year-old girl married in society today, because none of her friends are going to appreciate that, it's going to create a big disturbance in her mind, and their marriage generally doesn't work out. Practically none of those child marriages that we've seen have worked out, because there's immense pressure on them from the outside. And what to speak of the legal authorities who may come and take the parents to jail for getting a 12-year-old girl married. The system I appreciate that they're trying to do now in Mayapur, because we're trying to come to that culture, and we understand that the girl's first boyfriend, it's natural she'll give her heart to that boy, and she'll love that boy, and that relationship will be stronger. What they're doing in Mayapur that I really like is they make a betrothal. And they have a whole ceremony, and this girl is betrothed to this boy, and it's kind of almost like they're married, but they're not. But they're not living together or anything. But that's their boyfriend and girlfriend thing. And it's encouraged that they're going to stay together, and eventually they're going to get married in a more serious way. And in the community in Mayapur, that's highly respected, and I think it's been working out as far as I understand amongst the Gurukul boys and girls. It's a difficult thing because marriage is not just that we can read Prabhupada's books and say, okay, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's first wife was 4 years old when he got married to her. So, you can marry a 4-year-old girl or something. Prabhupada says in one purport that there's something like a 10-year-old girl can marry a 70-year-old man. Mm-hmm. It's not that you can do that practically. And we've seen that in ISKCON. It just doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? Because we don't have a community like that. If there's a community like that where everybody's on the same page and they all respect that, and the girl feels loved and she feels protected and she feels it's natural, and all her friends say, well, this is wonderful, it's a natural thing, then it works. And we've seen that in India, we've seen that in Africa, we've seen it in cultures all over the world. Even in America and Europe, 50 or 100 years ago, it was not uncommon at all for girls of the age of 12 or 14, 15 years old to get married. Now it's a very, very uncommon thing. And we're affected by the outside culture. Marriage means a community program. It's something, it's not just that the couple are married, but it's the whole community, a part of it. Is that helpful, Prabhuji? And again, this is just my humble understanding. These are very controversial things. I know where you're staying too, Harichandra Prabhu, some devotees might get upset with some of the comments that I'm making, and that's fine. Devotees should follow their heart. But what I'm speaking is history. You can see this thing. It's happened in so many temples all over the world. Practically none of these child marriages have worked, especially when they try to marry a young girl, a teenage girl, to a 40, 50-year-old man. It's crazy. It just doesn't work generally. Okay? All right. So I'd like to see if Siddha Hari Prabhu has any reflections about these things today.
Thank you, Prabhu. Really appreciate your speaking today. I first wanted to make a comment on last thing which you shared. You shared this quote from His Holiness Gorgon Swami Maharaj about the topic of guru, how he was saying there are issues with the organization, and he doesn't want to fight them, because if he fights them, that would cause the institution to disrupt. And I was thinking that it's an interesting thing to learn from a pure devotee, that how he is interacting with the society, that he has a capacity. I mean, he's somebody who's in a very high level of devotion. He has a capacity, or he understands the Siddhanta very well, that how a guru should not be stamped. But he could have fought that in society, that hey, this whole thing is wrong. But he's choosing to stay silent over that topic, because he's seeing something else as much more important, which is him preaching the Siddhanta and him speaking about the glories of the holy name and Bhāgavatam and spreading the glories of Prabhupada everywhere. So I was thinking there's something to be learned from Srila Prabhupada, because sometimes as a youngster in Krishna conscious movement, I sometimes start thinking about how these things, the institution should be corrected. But actually, if you see at the life of His Holiness Gaura Maharaj, he's not so much focused on fixing the institution, but he's more focused on speaking Krishna Katha and enlivening devotees. So that was like a reflection based on the companies.
I think it's the same thing. That was his vision, how to fix the institution. And he didn't have any faith in all the psychiatry or management counseling and all this kind of stuff like that. This movement has been started for the holy name, to do kirtan, and the holy name solves all the problems. Krishna Katha solves problems, not all this management stuff in that. But some people are attached to that, and some people are attached to doing it, and some people are attached to following it. Some people, if you go and tell them we have this great program, we're just going to chant Hare Krishna, and that they're going to say, man, you're in Maya. We need to have management, and I want to have a good leader, and I'm not going to follow Siddha Hari. He's just like some hippie guy, who's going to just chant Hare Krishna all day and just eat some lettuce and some raw sprouts or something,
Thank you. And Prabhu, I had a question. The question was, I was reading this section, interestingly, the similar section yesterday in Bhāgavatam, and that how Kardama Muni also goes to Krishna, and he says that, I have this material desire that I would like to have a wife, and although this is such a stupid desire, you're not supposed to have material desires in front of Krishna, but I have that, and I need your help with it. So I was wondering that, he's approaching Krishna with a material desire, and but sometimes it seems like that Krishna doesn't hear our material desires, and that's why sometimes devotees, I've seen that. I mean, I personally don't do it yet, but I've seen devotees saying that, hey, maybe I should go to Lakshmi Devi for Lakshmi, because she will hear my material desires, and Krishna is not going to fulfill the material desire. So how do you encounter that? Because sometimes I see a lot of devotees worshipping Lord Shiva and Lakshmi Devi for reasons other than pure devotion.
That's okay. We don't hate them, and they're our friends. We respect everyone. But I would rather follow Srila Prabhupada, I would rather follow Narottam Das Thakur, I would rather follow Rupa Goswami than these devotees who are worshipping Shiva and Lakshmi and that. They're our friends, but I'm going to keep some distance from them. And therefore Narottam says, Karmi Gyani Mitya Bhakti Naho Bitati Anurakta. Don't be attached to them. There's always going to be so many people like that. I remember one Prabhupada disciple, a friend of mine in Los Angeles, he openly used to tell us that I want to go to the heavenly planets. He said, I'm sorry, I confess, I want to go to the heavenly planets. I want to enjoy there some and that. So what can you say? That's his desire. But they're our friend at the same time.
Okay. But one last thing, in the verse which we discussed today, I was thinking about this aspect of jnana karma and navritam. You were mentioning that there are two ways that can be covering it. One is thinking about it being the goal, and second, it becoming the essential thing, for success, becoming successful in bhakti. And I feel that this is something which I face all the time, that I see somebody doing, like, being expert in Sanskrit. I see somebody being expert in music or singing capabilities. And I think, hey, I don't have those skills, and that's why I'm so weak in my bhakti. And, and that keeps something keeps coming back and back. Hey, this devotee is speaking so nice katha, and he has such good memory. And it seems like that one has to make an endeavor for becoming well-versed in the scripture and becoming expert in, say, singing for Krishna, but at the same time, that shouldn't be overtaking one's devotion. So it's difficult to understand that aspect, where is one lazy versus where is one not covering it up.
Therefore, we need guru. I remember Krishna Kon and I, in our last meeting we had with Radha Govinda Maharaj, one of our last meetings, and I asked him, I said, Maharaj, maybe I should be studying Sanskrit. And Radha Govinda Maharaj is one of our leading Sanskrit scholars in our society. He's been studying the Bhāgavatam since he was like 5 years old. He's amazing. He's studying so many commentaries on the Bhāgavatam and that. And he has so many wonderful disciples like Hari Parashit Prabhu and others who are very good in Sanskrit. And Maharaj told me, no, don't do that. And I was
It's
a little,
not your service.
yeah, he said, it's not your service. He told me I should do the service that my Guru Maharaj had given me. So it's really up to the particular guru. On the other hand, Hari Parashit Prabhu, Maharaj told him, he has a different kind of karma, he has a different kind of lifestyle that he grew up with as a boy. Maharaj saw that he has some aptitude for Sanskrit, and Maharaj has encouraged him to write Sanskrit poetry, write verses and things, and to go very deep in it. I don't think that it's necessarily that one is necessarily higher in terms of bhakti than another. What's the highest is Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada, that we please Guru. That's the highest thing. And an example again is Gorkishore Babaji, who didn't know Sanskrit, but he's completely surrendered devotee. So, is that helpful, Prabhuji?
Yes, very helpful. Thank you, Prabhu. Very helpful.
And is Jai Gaur being nice to you? You took him all the way to New York City, actually, huh?
Yeah, we saw him.
We saw some pictures.
Yes, but we had a great time in New York. It was his birthday, and I know he loves Harinam there, so we planned an outing there. We had a great time doing Harinam with Yamaraja Prabhu's crew in New York.
You're a real friend, Prabhuji. A real friend is someone who helps us in our bhakti and does kirtan with us.
Oh, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your blessings.
Jai Gaur, you got to be a real friend and make sure he eats more than just salad, okay? You have any reflections you want to share with us, Jai?
Sure, Prabhu. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get him to eat more than salad. He likes salad and popcorn. That's about it. Prabhu, the class is really, really amazing today. I'm looking for a book. We were reading Prema-bhakti-candrika yesterday, and what you were speaking in the beginning about this Anyabhilash Shunyam verse that Narottam Das Thakur is rewording, it reminded me of what we were reading yesterday, where it's he's explaining Aropa Siddha Bhakti and Sangha Siddha Bhakti and Swarup Siddha Bhakti. And I was wondering if this write myself here. I was wondering if this like yena karma and this yena and karma, is that considered Sangha Siddha Bhakti? I'm trying to understand it more, because it's saying here
it is done, therefore there's different types of gyan. Tat padartha gyan, tat padartha gyan, tvam padartha gyan, and jiva brahma aikya gyan. The first two are beneficial because they're connected with bhakti. Understanding Krishna, or understanding my position as a spirit soul, that's favorable for bhakti. That's Sangha Bhakti. But the Jiva Brahma Aikya Gyan, understanding the oneness of the Lord and the Jiva, that's not connected with bhakti, and therefore it's just a waste of time.
So Aropa Siddha Bhakti and Sangha Siddha Bhakti are only considered bhakti if they're actually connected with Swarup Siddha Bhakti? Is that the understanding? Yeah.
But my understanding of the subject is that Aropa Siddha Bhakti and Sangha Siddha Bhakti are also bhakti. But we want to focus on Swarup Siddha Bhakti. Aropa Siddha Bhakti is something we're projecting something off on it, and it may not be so clear. It's difficult. There may be some problems. We may fall down. We may go away. Sangha Siddha Bhakti. We're doing bhakti because we're building a temple, doing constructions relate to, and we're doing it for Guru Day. That's bhakti. Just being a construction worker is not the same as being a devotee. But if I'm doing it for Krishna and for the devotees, that's Sangha Siddha Bhakti.
He says here in the verse that pure knowledge and proper renunciation are themselves Sangha Siddha devotion. So I was confused by that in connection with the verse, because it seems like there's an asterisk there, like they would only be devotion if they're connected with if they were favorable towards our devotional practices.
What is pure knowledge? Pure knowledge means tat padartha-gyan or tvam padartha-gyan, understanding Krishna, understanding Krishna.
And proper renunciation also is renunciation in connection with Krishna. Okay, I think I'm understanding a little bit better.
All right. How's the work going?
It's going well, Prabhu. I mean, power was out here for like 5 days because of that ice storm, so it worked out well. We could go to New York, and I didn't have to worry about getting stuff done here.
Too austere for me, man. Ice storms. We're having a hard time here also, but there's no ice storms here. But it's been. It's not like that.
I'm looking forward to being in the concrete jungle and doing some Harinam.
It was nice seeing you in the kirtan.
It was nice being there.
That's everything. We just be in kirtan with the devotees. That's the safest place in the world.
They turned the hell of the subways of New York into better than heaven.
Yeah, a place where everybody's dancing and chanting and happy.
It's wonderful.
Amra is really special. Thank you, Prabhuji. I want to finish up pretty quick here. Leela Purushottam Prabhu, do you have any reflections you want to share with us?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, I was just thinking, we really like with Tirthakara Prabhu, we really like that story of the dog punishing the Brahmin. That's a good one. And in that connection, when you were like elaborating on that topic quite extensively, I was thinking that it would be easy to say that the safe position for the manager is to view his position as a manager as a service and not exploit that position with the selfish motives. That would be like easy formula to avoid possible contamination by that position. But then I was thinking of one great example that I've heard from, I believe it was Bhakti Dhira Damodar Maharaj. And he was explaining what was the difference for Lord Brahma and Haridas Thakur, exactly.
I use that example.
And we could just advise Lord Brahma like, hey, it's just your service, don't worry, you just remember that it's your service. But that position carries so much strength to carry us away, especially with our conditioned natures that we really pretend here to be the Purushas, to be enjoyers and exploiters. So that's something we actually fight with on the path of devotional service, to really identify properly as the servants. So that was like the mixture of my thoughts on that topic. Was like first was like, yeah, it's easy. You just remember that you serve to those living entities under your care. You know, you're not their ruler, you're their servant actually. And you can think like that even if you are king, even if you are guru, even if you are whatever. you can think like that. But the example of Lord Brahma is like quite warning. Like
the problem with Lord Brahma, we hear in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, he became puffed up with his position. And I really like Bhakti Dear Damodar Maharaj's comment. I also repeat that all the time. What is it? Lord Brahma was attracted by his own daughter. But Haridas Thakur, when Mayadevi personified came, he wasn't disturbed. What's the difference between the two? Lord Brahma was a manager, and Haridas Thakur wasn't. Lord Brahma had this big position. So Haridas Thakur also had a position. He was a namacharya. He had some rank and file in Mahaprabhu's movement. He was sent out as a preacher with Lord Nityananda Prabhu, but he never had that abhiman. He never demanded respect from anybody. He was always giving respect to everyone. So I think if someone does service as a manager and they're really doing it as service for Prabhupada, for their guru, they can get prem bhakti by serving in that way. But the main thing is that we don't have that abhiman, that attitude that I'm a big controller in that. And we want to serve everyone. We see Srila Prabhupada, and we can't imitate this, but Prabhupada in the early days, he was washing the dishes for the devotees. He was standing among the queue in the bathroom with the devotees, and he was cooking for them and cleaning up afterwards and so many things. That's not appropriate for Guru, and he stopped that later on because it wasn't good for the devotees. But that was Srila Prabhupada's mood. That was his personal mood. My Guru Maharaj wouldn't allow anyone to wash his clothes for many, many years until finally he had some disease or something. It's still kind of mysterious. We don't really understand it. And he became lame. He couldn't walk. And then he finally allowed some devotees to help serve him. But before that, he wouldn't do it. And he just accepted, okay, Krishna wants me to do this thing. Yeah,
or maybe would be like if you would consciously approach this dilemma, how to protect yourself from that abhiman. You could like consciously endeavor in like menial services to the devotees, you know, like cook for the devotees, serve them prasadam, and even in the position of high management, I would say.
Yeah, I think Satyananda Maharaj was a Buri Jampu. Someone told us a story once that they were doing Vrindavan Parikrama, and they saw one of the leading mahants, means guru, he has like thousands of disciples, sitting with the beggars, these diseased people, and that sitting with the beggars on the side of the road begging. And he was shocked, and he went up to him and said, Maharaj, what's going on? And he told him, he said that I do this every year to help me to give up my abhiman. And I've seen in Gaudiya Mutt, sometimes I'll go to Gaudiya Mutt temple for prasadam or something, and it's not uncommon, it's a common practice during festivals that the sannyasis serve out prasadam. And I've seen some Gaudiya Mutts, a very senior person will do all the cooking in that. It's a common thing, and that's very helpful for us. We should be careful. I think as neophyte devotees who are preaching and sometimes getting respect, we have to be very, very careful, and we have to be very honest about our position, because it's easy to become a big frog in a little pond. We're just a frog. The pond is really small. It's just only 2 feet wide, and I'm the biggest frog here, so I know everything. But you're just a tiny frog, and there's so many big fish and sharks and things in the ocean. You're nothing compared to all of them. So that's also really important. We always try to associate with higher Vaishnavas so we can see our position. Otherwise, we forget and start trying to imitate Indra or something. So we've seen too much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here in the room want to share anything? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop. It's a little late for us, and we got to get up early tomorrow. Thank you all very much, and we'll see everybody next week. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki, Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Vyeva Cha Patitanam, Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo.